The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Welcome to the Kaza Brew Show!
Yeah!
Yeah, cuz. Yeah.
That's a post-draft, free agency. That was what you call a draft free agency sandwich.
Yeah, it's spelled D-J-E-A-H with lots of H's after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I got a little energy for my shout, but I'm not gonna lie, cause I just spent 36 hours over the last 3 days cranking out the Hoop Ball free agent rankings, which is a labor of love that I do every single year. Not sure why I do it. Nobody ever listens to me.
Because you like labor and you like love.
I do. I like both of those things, but I also I like to rank things. I like to. I feel like I'm helping somebody out there. Hopefully, you know, last year Joe Ingles was the big one that we hit on. Nobody threw money at Joe Ingles last year. Everybody just assumed that Joe Ingles loved Utah so much that, hey, why offer the guy an extra $10 million? He will never take this.
Yeah. People are never motivated by money.
Never. And they never say all the right things after they stay with the home team. And you're going to get a lot of that right now. A lot of players are going to say things like, I would love to stay here, ... And it all comes down to money. It all comes down to fit. It all comes down to needs. So that's all built into the rankings. So go check them out at hoop-ball.com. And they're a little bit different. Like, you know, you're going to have rankings everywhere on the internet this time of the year for free agency. And they're basically just ranking who's the best player. And I think we kind of all know who the best players are within certain degrees. I
don't know who the best player is. I won't know who the best player is until I watch the NBA awards tonight. Then I'll know who the best player is.
Yeah, shout out to old boss Kurt Heelan. He tweeted something like that. Now that all interest has died down, the NBA is going to have their award show. Just a little bit late, guys, but it's okay. I guess it gives us something to talk about. But yeah, I guess my ranks real quick before we talk draft here, because the NBA draft happened. It was great. It was exciting. It was like prom, according to Kaz.
No, homecoming. The announcements of the players with the families walking out together, that was so stupid. I was, oh my God, I almost lost it. How idiotic that whole charade was.
You know what, man? As long as they didn't throw Kevin Hart and Rob Riggle out there for like an interpretive dance segment of what the draft meant, I was okay.
Okay.
And I don't know if you know, did you even catch that? Did we even talk about that?
About what?
It was All-Star Week, or it was the introductions of the All-Stars. So I guess that's got to have had happened like the day before the All-Star game, right? Did you see what Kevin Hart and Rob Riggle did?
No.
My God. Okay.
First of all, who's Rob Riggle?
I think I'm getting that name right. He's the guy. He's the screaming guy. He's hosted a couple of award shows. He's in a bunch of movies. He was in Step Brothers.
Okay, I know you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? The screaming guy.
Yeah. He's on tons of shows.
Yeah. Did you see that with him and Kevin Hart? No. Okay. All right. Somebody needs to do an oral history of that event, and you need to go watch it, cause you'll never get those 15 minutes of your life back. But I kind of feel like since we all watched it,
Ron or Rob Riggle?
I think it's Rob. Did I say Ron? Either way. Everybody else had to watch it, so now you have to watch it, cause. And then I want you to report back at some point in time of your choosing. But quickly about the ranks. What we do with the ranks is we're rating players based on kind of what they're going to cost in relation to what they're going to produce, while also remembering that you still got to have good players to be able to win games. So you can't just go get all of the bargains out there and win a championship, contrary to popular belief. So that's the ranks. Go check them out. We're going to work off of those here a little bit in this pod. But draft, like, what was your big takeaway from draft?
My big takeaway was I think a lot of teams are setting themselves up for some rough times. I thought that some teams were wise, some teams I thought really reached. The first one that jumped out was Trae Young going to Atlanta. So they did the switch with Doncic 3, and so the Mavericks picked Trae Young for Atlanta. I mean, I just don't see the kid as being an impact player. So anybody that was going to take him, 10 or above to me was making a drastic mistake. And
and they sort of compounded that by trading into that scenario.
Yeah. I just, I wished him well. I mean, this is a kid that just does not compete whatsoever on the defensive end. He doesn't play good with contact. The shots that, once the defense tightened up on him as the season went on, he wasn't able to beat people off the dribble, and he wasn't able to make those circus shots because guys were playing up on him. So I just don't know. You can't just, when you're talking about giving somebody millions of dollars and passing on players that are really good, you just can't just look at their good film. I mean, I think that's just a stupid way to go about, evaluating a player.
Atlanta's really rising up the franchise dysfunctionality power rankings. I feel like ownership is getting underreported for how short-sighted they are, and it's filtering down into general management. And to take a player like Trae Young, who's such a reach, such a risk, and he's the kind of guy you can't really build around, I don't think, based on talent, but like just the fact that he already sets your defense back that much, and you don't have anybody on your roster really. I mean, you got a couple good players here and there, but you just have a lot of space to fill on that roster, and you go and pick that guy. Yeah. I would. They're definitely, I think, the losers of this draft, and I think the bust potential there is big. But what else? That was the obvious one. Well, give me something with a little bit more obscurity.
Well, I loved Lonnie Walker going to the Spurs. I mean, we talked last week about where a guy goes. This guy might be, one of the 3 best athletes in the draft, and you look at his flaws, they're all kind of just they're just kind of maybe thinking the game through a little bit as far as him being a scorer, and I think those are the kind of things that will be tightened up, in a Spurs training camp. So I mean, this guy catches the ball, elevates well. When his handle needs to be a little bit tighter, but when he gets in the traffic, I mean, he could really bang on people. I mean, this dude is a leaper. So going to that, I mean, there couldn't be a better situation for him. I mean, he's just going to learn how to play the right way, and he could end up being this is a guy that if he went to a bad team, maybe he gets buried. Maybe he plays on 6-7 teams in his career. He goes from that to going to the Spurs. This guy has could be a potential all-star. So I thought that was just a great pick and a great fit.
Yeah, and he steps into the 3-point shot with confidence and good form, and that I think is if you're gonna go play for Greg Popovich, there's first defense. He's got the athleticism to be good there, and then after that, it's can you take the shot when it's presented to you within the offense, right. And he is going to be just fine doing that. So if he could do anything else in addition to that, which frankly they might need if that team gets sort of tore down, then that's just a huge pickup for them. I guess I would probably weigh in with somebody that I thought did a good job. I just have to now figure out who that person is. I didn't do any draft grades. I spent the good 36 hours before the draft, 36 hours, probably more, before the draft, relaying Kings intel to the masses as their decision was one of the more public ones of the draft. Everything sort of hinged on Luka Doncic. The Suns took DeAndre Ayton at 1. They had no other plans for taking any other player. I didn't have Ayton at 1, so we talked about that last week. But that meant everybody focused on the Kings at 2. there was a lot of talk internally about taking Luka Doncic, and Doncic appeared to have made a comeback in the final day. What that sort of told me is that maybe some of the noise surrounding that decision got up into ownership, and they started making or softening in their position on Bagley. That didn't happen by the end of the night before the draft and early in the morning. It was telegraphed that they would take Bagley. Kings Twitter went nuts, so I really didn't get a chance to look at the winners down the draft board. We covered it all in a kind of a whirlwind of blurbs over at the site. I think Bamba at 6 interests me. I think Jaren Jackson at 4 is probably a great pick for the Grizzlies. Colin Sexton, I thought, for Cleveland was good.
I wonder what their actual evaluation, because there was a lot of talk that Trae Young was going to go there, and did they just feel that they needed a guard, and maybe they thought Trae Young was better. I mean, we discussed last week, and I think that it's not even close between Sexton and Young, but I think that's a good pick for them. Get some youth and a guy with some attitude in there, whether LeBron's there or not. I think that was a good pick.
It was a little painful watching. I don't know who was doing the interviews after, but she did a really good job during the telecast. But she was asking some tough questions. She asked like Colin Sexton to make a pitch to LeBron James to stay in Cleveland. It wasn't that good. Michael Bridges was somebody. I just think that the Suns really, they bet a lot on him. Don't get me wrong. Like, they have an unprotected first in this bet. He was getting interviewed by everybody after the draft about playing for his hometown team, the team that his mom works in human resources for in Philly, and he got traded before the end of the press conference, which was one of those great NBA moments. I just think he's going to be outstanding, and I think he goes to a place in Phoenix where there's not a lot of competition in general. There are a lot of players that are his profile, but I think hopefully for their sake, because they're so unbalanced, they have so many chuckers, there's so much bad stuff going on there in Phoenix that they let Michael play. That would be nice there. I don't know who else jumps out at me.
I'll tell you what jumped out at me was Michael Porter to Denver.
Oh, yeah.
That jumped out at me. There was a couple other ones. So Michael Porter to Denver, that jumped out at me just because I think this is a big year for Coach. God, I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, you mean Mr. Malone?
Yeah, for Coach Malone. I mean, just barely missing the playoffs last year. I don't know. This is a guy that may not play a game for you this year. You got Will Barton as a free agent. You're hopefully going to retain him. But to me, like, what I've learned in my years of watching basketball is that Jerry West is the best basketball evaluator ever. And the fact that he had 2 picks right before that and wouldn't touch him, to me, sometimes you got to let smart people do your drafting for you. And for them to have 2 picks and have a little wiggle room, like if he's not going to play for the Clippers, they're kind of in that in between. They rallied at the end of last season. But I think if he was a player, I think that they would have taken him there. And I'm trying to remember who said something very interesting about Michael Porter Jr., because a lot of the hype comes from his AAU film, which his dad was the coach and basically let him do anything. Brandon Roy was his high school coach. And they were saying how they've scoured the internet for any kind of Brandon Roy endorsement of Michael Porter Jr., and it's not there.
Damn, Cause, that's some A+ knowledge you're bringing to the Cause and Brew show right there. I did not see any of that, and that's huge. If all of that lines up, kind of fits in with what we've been seeing.
Yeah, so that one to me, I hope for Coach Malone's sake that they can get everything else together, because I just don't know how much this kid's going to play. And even if he does play, we talked about the holes in this game, and then there's all the other baggage that he has. And then I also didn't know maybe I evaluated wrong Grayson Allen, because he's someone I didn't even have in my first round, and Utah generally drafts really good, and they went and took him at 21. So maybe they know something that we don't know. or that I don't know anyway. But that one,
I
that
haven't
would
done
make,
a deep dive on Grayson Allen film, but I'll say this: when I first saw him on the court, I thought that there was a chance he could work in the NBA just with that body. Like he seems a little more athletic than I'm looking at he's 6'5" right now. I kind of felt like he was like 6'7", 6'8", but that's probably the college game playing tricks on my eyes.
yeah.
Real quick before we move into free agency here on the Michael Porter stuff, really that Michael Malone sort of being on the ropes, I can't imagine he's thrilled with the fact that they didn't add an asset.
Right.
Right now the early word out of Denver is that a redshirt year is very much in play. When he was asked, and this is again the same interviewer for ESPN, another tough question is he going to play in Summer League? He said he was ready, but he didn't look like he was ready. He spit that out like, oh crap, I just made a bad lie.
Yeah.
So that's obviously not helpful to now, and I think everybody knows that they got to win now. And what it reminded me of, and I hate to conflate fantasy analysis with reality analysis because I think like the layman listener or somebody that's not played fantasy goes, well, it's not like fantasy, dumbass. And then I just sound stupid. But like this happens in fantasy all the time. Somebody that's highly rated with injury risk just starts precipitously falling like down into the second round, which would be what kind of the equivalent of this was. And it lands in front of you, and the conventional wisdom is you have to take this player. They're so undervalued compared to what their kind of perceived value was heading into the draft. And I would say probably 75% of the time, fantasy owners, when faced with this type of a decision, they do exactly what Denver did. They go, we're going to get crushed if we pass this guy. And that's too bad for them because I really don't think this is going to work out. And lastly, to put a bow on the draft, you can't say enough about Dallas really identifying that they can get who a lot of people had as the number one player in the draft. Not everybody, but Luka Doncic. Getting their guy. They've had a hard time attracting sort of big name guys. So getting one in the draft. For the Mavs, who typically don't draft very high, that is a massive windfall for them. I think he's going to work so well next to Dennis Smith. So what are your thoughts there?
That was a great pick for them, but they also picked up someone else, and I'm blanking, and I'm having trouble getting down the list. But yeah, it's a good pick for him. Carlisle, that's if you're a young player, I think that being in the Rick Carlisle business is a good thing for you. So, and
if he thinks you can play, he gives you minutes right off the bat.
Yeah,
and the converse is true. He won't play you if he doesn't like you.
Yeah,
ask Rondo about that.
They played. I liked the pickup of Brunson. Jalen Brunson, I think, is just horribly undervalued because he was one of those old. Disgusting seniors that have no chance of getting better at the age of 22 from Villanova. The guy's about 6'4". He knocks down his open shots. He knows he's going to come in, be able to run a team. I think that was an excellent pickup, but I think it gives them, a little bit of leeway in not having to necessarily re-sign Curry or Yogi Ferrell for money that you might think that might be a little bit too much for their actual worth. So I think but just those two picks, I think Dallas really killed it in the draft.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, Kaz, because Seth Curry checks in at number 36 on the free agent rankings over at Hoopball, and Yogi's much lower. Where do we got Yogi? It's 65. Free agency is right around the corner, and so we get, I would say tomorrow might be the last slow days before things really start cranking up. We obviously have the big pieces. The big domino is LeBron James. The second biggest domino is Paul George. And you got a fairly big domino in Chris Paul, who probably might be he might be the X factor here in free agency because Houston has to pay Clint Capela. Teams are going to come after him. We'll talk about him in a second here. there might not be enough money for Chris Paul. And I don't think they're going to be in the LeBron James sweepstakes. Vegas reissued odds, and I want to say it was 4-13 that LeBron would be playing in Los Angeles. And that's that's like, I don't know what the implied odds are on that, but that's a pretty good chance. I want to say it's like 75% chance that he goes, and he's a Laker, which is crazy. I mean, who would have thought? That I didn't really think that would ever happen, but if he goes to LA, there's going to be a question about, can Paul George show up? Can Kawhi Leonard get there?
I mean, is that really? Do they think he's so in love with LA he's going to go to LA without an assurance of those guys coming? Without Paul George? I mean, I can't imagine that he thinks that they're going to be in the Western Conference Finals by just him being added to that team. I mean, he is a great player, but the West is not the East. And adding him to Kyle Kuzma and Lonzo Ball, who can't even shoot, and Ingram, I just don't know where you get. I don't know that jumps you. It gets you into the playoffs, of course, because they had a great run at the end of the season, but if he's trying to win rings, there has to be another All-Star coming with him.
Well, the Lakers are front and center in front of all of this, so that's one thread we're going to uncover here. I mean, LeBron's looking, and also comments out of Cleveland, very defeatist sort of comments. If you're hoping to keep LeBron James, if you're a Cavs fan, you heard you heard Tyronn Lue talk about the free agency decision as if it was kind of already made. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but just trust me, that's actually how it got sort of positioned by the reporters reporting it. I don't think they're gearing up. There's been talk about them wanting to sign Rodney Hood and pay probably a significant amount of money for him. And I don't know that would be the choice that would be made if LeBron was staying. I think with him not wanting to come into a playoff game, LeBron might just not even want anything to do with that. If LeBron wanted him playing, he would have been playing before the series was over in Golden State. So I think he's out of there, and I guess the question becomes, where else would he make sense? Houston, it seems like he doesn't want to be there if you kind of just read the tea leaves. Philly,
I keep hearing that too.
You got to get rid of Ben Simmons if he's going to Philly. Like, I can't see that working with LeBron and Ben Simmons on the same floor. Or am I reading that wrong? Could they make that work?
I don't think so. I think that Simmons is still a little too early. He's really savvy within his own game of getting to the rim without that jumper and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're going to have a ball-dominant guy, who are you going to choose? You want the ball in LeBron's hands or Ben Simmons' hands?
Yeah, it was one thing with Kyrie, because LeBron could just kind of say, hey, Kyrie, I'm tired. Go out and score 20 real quick. And Kyrie could do that.
And he's a catch-and-shoot guy. Kyrie Irving can give you 20 points without taking a lot of dribbles. And that's the biggest thing is when they're on the floor together. What you could get for Ben Simmons if you were able to get LeBron. That's a big chip. A lot of teams are going to give you a lot of assets to get into the Ben Simmons game.
The Clippers are the team that really strikes me as the dark horse to get LeBron. But we haven't heard any buzz about that, and Vegas hasn't had much buzz about it either.
That doesn't surprise me that there hasn't been buzz. That's always been kind of one of I think that they have a really good chance. But I don't know about this whole with the only thing that would I think throw a kink in it is the Paul George Doc Rivers dynamic. So
you
that
always bring that up.
Well, it's a pretty big deal.
It is, and it's funny too.
It's a pretty big
deal.
Can
you relay for the listeners and use the word allegedly a lot? Not allegedly. That implies some sort of crime. But we don't know a lot of stuff about this. But we know what cause. What do we know?
That he was dating Doc Rivers' daughter, and that he might have also been dating other people at the same time. So it's
and we're going to find out how much Doc Rivers is able to separate basketball and life.
Right. I mean, it's truly in his court, if he thinks
he hired his own son, like he signed his own son when everybody's like, no, don't do that. maybe he compartmentalizes. And so maybe that is actually what's going on, because I don't see the Clippers anywhere near, and it just kind of all points back to the Lakers. It's like the Lakers are just there. Like they've got talent that they can kind of, fling around in deals if they want. They really do want a big star to come in, and I think that they're kind of, I don't want to say they're getting lucky, but there just aren't that many destinations for LeBron to go to. I think that's why some people think he could go back to Cleveland, is they look at all these situations, and if you're LeBron and you don't get a Paul George to join you, right, or Chris Paul, maybe they could pull something like that off if Houston doesn't want to pay Chris Paul.
Right.
But the configurations just aren't there.
Yeah, but don't you? I mean, the Chris Paul, wouldn't the only reason not to sign Chris Paul would be that you're going to make a run at LeBron?
Yeah, I think Houston and Chris Paul are kind of meant to be at this point.
Yeah, if they're going to give him a 5-year, that's just such bad money.
They're not. I don't think they can. I don't think they will. I think everybody knows that Chris Paul is kind of, at a minimum, his injury history almost shows conclusively that there's going to be a problem at some point in time. And I mean, it's kind of, you don't want to, like a hand injury, for instance, like you don't want to hold that against a guy. That's completely random.
Right.
But, this most recent one was an overuse, and he's probably been playing through it for X amount of time, and he's had hamstring issues. He's just getting old. He's got a lot of mileage, and working in his favor, this doesn't impact his game that much. He's a quickness and cunning guy. So I think he'll survive, but already you're starting to hear Chris Paul leak out through the media that he's not exactly thrilled with the way discussions are being handled, because you've got Clint Capela out there. And before we talk Capela, real quick, Paul George, let's get these elite guys out of the way. Paul George. Carmelo Anthony opted into his deal because that would have been crazy not to. I'm kind of curious how Oklahoma City chooses to handle that. Like, I haven't dug into what it looks like if they can waive or stretch him. I don't think you waive him because he can give you, X amount on the offensive side. But they don't want him there.
Yeah, it was just a bad trade. This is just it's just a really stupid decision. Why would you, this is not fantasy. This is not, we're not talking about, let's just discuss what a guy was in their prime. You got a guy with no knees, doesn't play defense, doesn't rebound, chucks the ball, stops the ball. He really brings nothing to the table as far as him being a piece of a team. And for them to make that trade when all the writing was on the wall for the last 3 years, and now you're in this situation where now you're paying $28 million to one guy who does one thing sort of okay now. And now it's like, okay, well, does Paul George want to come back to a situation? They did get eliminated in the first round. That couldn't have been on his mind when he was acquired by them. So I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for him to stay.
And they could trade him too, but again, that salary is so massive, like fitting it into a deal. Well, yeah. I guess if you're a super team and you're trying to just load up talent in any kind of way, shape, or form, knowing that the deal comes off the books the following year, the Thunder would have to give to get rid of this deal.
Right.
And they can stretch him. So that's an option that we might see. He would have to be waived between July 1 and August 31. So that's lingering out there. And the Paul George decision, I think everybody's like kind of just saying, oh yeah, he's going to stay in Oklahoma City, which sort of speaks to the way these things get done weeks in advance. So you start to see how things get telegraphed as we lead up to the July 1 moratorium date. He is... I feel like, why would you stay in Oklahoma City if you're Paul George, especially if you love L.A.? So this LeBron, Paul George kind of converging on L.A. seems logical to me. It seems realistic. It seems like a compelling option to play the Golden State Warriors if you can somehow start to wedge some players in around that. But we're not hearing that. It just doesn't seem like the Paul George to L.A. train is all that fired up.
Right. But I just don't know that. I mean, I don't know what other team could potentially jump in there to snag him. There just hasn't been a lot of buzz in that way. But I mean, that would be pretty damn good. Not having to lose anything, because I do like their young players. But then there's also the Kawhi thing floating around too. I think that's
another big domino that we have yet to tackle.
I think the resolution of that situation, but I just don't know if that can be resolved, before, free agency starts.
The Spurs probably know that and are probably gauging whether or not it makes sense to really put the foot down on the gas pedal there before free agency, or if it makes sense to sort of drag it out a little bit and let the market make its first move, so they're not the ones making their own first move. They're in a position of weakness, so they're probably looking at any angle to get more ROI. They also had a previously scheduled meeting where Greg Popovich met with Kawhi Leonard, and make no mistake, I think they're still trying to convince him to stay. And
absolutely.
That, you're seeing things sort of come to a head. That Tony Parker comment, when it came out however many months ago about his injury being way worse, when I heard that, I was like, whoa, you don't hear this.
Yeah.
And it's a small town and a smaller market, and it just didn't get a lot of airtime. It sort of fell under the umbrella of the Kawhi story, but I was like, wow, that guy, saying that, that's a shot across the bow. Anyway, he's really mad about that. Maybe they can get things figured out.
Maybe they can. I just heard Steve Fisher, his college coach, who's still very close to the family, and he didn't want to bet on anything, but he did not sound like Kawhi has. That he's very much their relationship was very much damaged by this, and he just kept on repeating that if Kawhi could have gone, he would have went. And anybody that doesn't believe that is crazy. And so he made it seem, without saying anything, he definitely made it seem that the Spurs would have to pull out a miracle to get him to stay, or to reconcile there. So there you go, there you have it. And so all of that swirling around at the top, the Lakers have Julius Randle. He's a big name free agent, restricted free agent. That's really, like, I think his market has vacillated as much as anybody I've seen. He's gone from completely cold and out of Luke Walton's main rotation, it felt like, there for a little bit, and then he sort of came back on the scene toward the end of the year. Him, Clint Capela, Aaron Gordon, they might be the buzzier names within the this free agent class. Capela also a restricted free agent. Same thing with Aaron Gordon. So we're starting to see the blue chips in that particular class get to their restricted free agency. Marcus Smart is a restricted free agent. LaVine. What do you think about Gordon here? Because what do you think? Do you think that he's worth the big money? because I like him as a player. I think even with his injuries and having dropped off, his athleticism dropped off a touch. He was a very high end athlete, and I like what he's done on the skill wise front. So I think he's a good player. But what that restricted thing might be demanding, I don't know. If they're so far behind the eight ball, is it really? If you have to give him so much money, is it going to be worth it in the long run, building a team?
It's funny. I was sitting there thinking, like, let's talk about Clint Capela, let's talk about Julius Randle. And you just went and grabbed Aaron Gordon, and it is one of the more intriguing situations out there. So I have no problem starting with Aaron Gordon. But I think we have to look at this year's available money. This is, going through this. Last year, I just started really putting the finishing touches on a projection system, projecting these contracts. I didn't think it did very well, so I really went back to the drawing board this year and really relied on a guy named Keith Smith of Real GM. He puts out some work that's really good. Check it out. It's in the article, and really try to wrap my head around how much available money is out there. There's not a lot, and these restricted free agents, I think in other years, especially that first year where they didn't do the smoothing, they'd all get max offers. And right. I don't know. I mean, Aaron Gordon's that guy that, if you're an owner, and believe me, owners have a lot to do with a lot of these decisions, and they're why they make. That's why they're behind at least half of the bad decisions that you see out there.
Sure.
And then even just decision makers in front offices, when they're seeing somebody that, in their mind they saw the dunk contest. In their mind, right. They see a player that's able to lift threes. In their mind, they see this sort of this prototypical, the guy that you want that stretch for, but with, they feel like he can play on the interior, and so they feel like they've got this highly switchable player that I could see him getting the max. And the other interesting thing is Orlando has spent the last sort of like year getting rid of guys from the old regimes, and what up PDA, I don't think they want him in Orlando, and I think that's going to make other teams, because when you make an offer to a restricted free agent, for those that are not versed in the cap out there, you're tying up money in the most important days of free agency. So you really have to feel like either you got a shot or you got nothing better to do with that money. And so I think if people think Orlando is not going to play ball, I think then that makes it more likely for him to get that offer. And like you, I noticed the athleticism dip. I think he's going to get top heavy. And when I wrote about this, I compared him to Blake Griffin, but Blake Griffin had way better post moves, believe it or not. Even as much as I disagree with some of Blake Griffin's whirling dervish of a post game, like he at least had that. That's what he was sort of known for coming into the league. Aaron Gordon is like a shooting guard out there. He's developed a dribble, drive, jumper-based game. I mean, he could still do stuff on the interior. If I'm like his agent or his his coaching staff, I'm just showing him Clint Capela over and over and over again and saying, "Hey, go do that." That stuff, I think, that vertical spacing and being quick to the paint and being able to maneuver around there, I think that stuff adds a lot of value for an offense. That when he starts taking long twos, which he loves to take, I don't see it. I don't think I wouldn't offer him. I got him ranked number 18, which is pretty high. It's not as high as a lot of people who are not taking cash into consideration. I think that there are plenty of other big man targets that I would rather have at a fraction of the cost. So I wouldn't do it. I don't know if you see it any other way. Julius Randle is another guy. This one's tougher for me. And it kind of comes back to the Los Angeles situation where you don't know what you're dealing with there. Do you have LeBron there? Do you have Paul George there? The Lakers aren't going to be able to match very big offers.
Right.
So let me ask you, since I think Randall's probably going to get similar, probably lower money than Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
People I can't reconcile that his best position might be the 5. And he's too small for the 5.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it.
I like him at the 4. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's just I think that again. I just think I feel like this let's switch everybody super small ball that is going to I believe. I mean, I shouldn't say I believe it's going to fizzle, but there has some people are going to eventually get sick of hitting themselves in the head. So
doesn't it feel like the preferred style of play where there's an actual big man? It all rides on DeMarcus Cousins, and he's not going to pull it off. So we're just disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, him and Embiid both. I mean, it would, and I think and Towns also falls into that of like, and I don't think it's as much Towns' fault as it is Tibbs. But I don't know. Randle, to me, I mean, they've listened. They've got their eye on the big fish. I think that they're going to, if he goes, he goes. I think that they're much more interested in the future of Kuzma and Ingram than they are with Randle. I think that the tempting thing with Randle for them is this unit that they have right now. He gives them a nastiness that they just don't have. He gives them a guy that's gonna just like slam into people. Kind of when he's really on, he kind of takes people's will because he's just gonna keep on slamming his body into them, and that's something that, at least from a coaching staff, that you value. But when we're taking the money into consideration, the modern NBA and switching everything, Kuzma and Ingram, are both, longer than him and are both much better on the perimeter. So it's not going to shock me that if the Lakers don't match, money that seems to be pretty big, especially if someone really reaches for him and offers him, an amount of money that is just doesn't seem to make any sense, but they're just trying to make a splash or something.
I feel like that number's like I think the bottom end of it's at like 17 million per year. And then above that, like, I don't know if I can see a team going 20 mil.
Yeah. And I think someone will.
Well, that's the thing with all of these situations. It just takes one team to be crazy. And,
right.
and so I guess, let me ask you, at 17 million, do you think he's worth it?
I don't think so. I don't.
And that's the answer on a lot of these guys this year.
Yeah,
and the owners are they're kind of posturing for the CBA negotiation. Like, right. You could kind of feel it, and it wouldn't be surprising if they clapped back on all these big contracts from the smoothing era and really closed ranks and just didn't offer a lot of big deals. Looking at last year's numbers, there was the elite class of free agent that commanded the big deals. After that, it was really almost like depressing when you think of some of the years where, like Ryan Anderson's getting $20 million a year and everybody is clamoring in Sacramento that it's worth it. You got to do it. That didn't happen last year. The biggest deal that wasn't for a known commodity, Tim Hardaway Jr. for at $71 million. And then it got really low after that. You had basically 5 deals that were in the 4-year, $50 million range. And that, at $12.5 million per year, that's just not a lot of money. So that I think we'll see this year. Let's quickly venture over to Clint Capela territory. I'm all in on him. Are you there? With
Chris Paul and James Harden, I mean, I thought that, to me.
Let me give you his number because it's a big one. Clint Capela, the max salary he can be offered, finger scrolling, don't let me down, is 4 years and $108 million. So that's $27 million per year. I think he's gonna get it. That's a lot of money, though.
That's a lot of money for a guy who just sets his screen and rolls hard.
Here's why I think he's going to get it, or at least if he stays with Houston, I think he could probably cut some salary there, to stay in a winning situation. But I wonder I just think that, like, for instance, Dallas, I feel like Dallas has him ranked over DeMarcus Cousins on their board, and they need somebody to play next to Dirk this year and somebody that projects well going forward. And with vertical spacing, like, DeAndre Jordan brought that to the Clippers for so many years, and I think Capela's way more skilled than DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, but you have to have. I mean, and it's only because you have Harden locked up. But to me, I mean, I'm just not a big. I'm always, if I'm a GM, I'm always going to feel as though I can find anybody to do that. I think there's just far more Clint Capelas in the world than there are, James Hardens and Chris Pauls. So so the idea, and I could be just completely wrong, I'm just being stubborn, but the idea of giving him $27 million would
just
make
to set screens.
it just makes my stomach turn, And
I think he does more than that. I think he's got a deft inside game that really goes underneath the radar. And I remember watching him in some, I forget what summer activity it was. I think it was either like Team Nike or whatever, when he was really young. And he did a Euro step in the kind of like the middle of the court, so he didn't pick up the ball. But I remember sitting there thinking, this guy can dribble and he can move a little bit. And yeah, he can't hit a free throw. And I think that's been, the big kind of downer on his stock, is everybody knows he can't shoot. He did improve at the line this year, and it reduced the Hacapella that you saw. This isn't for centers in the NBA. For good centers, there is an inflation that doesn't make sense. And if you went down the ladder, just one rank down to Aaron Baines, he's my number 2 ranked guy. Even there's inflation, but it's a $12 to $14 million per year projection. I believe, because teams saw what he did in the playoffs and realized that was a really big contribution that he made.
And I know
here's a guy. How about this? This is the guy that you would rather have, Montrezl Harrell. 2 to 3 years, $5 million per year, number 3 ranked player out of the bigs.
Now on the defensive end, he doesn't protect the rim like Capela, which, I mean, Capela's just in a great situation, because when you have a James Harden on your team, you need a rim protector. And so, but again, that's the thing. Like, I can get offensively, Montrezl Harrell can do all of that. He can do that.
I don't think he's as skilled with it, but he can do all of it.
He can do it. I mean, the key is Harden. The key is not. I mean, I just have a trouble, because for me, it's like, if Harden goes down for a stretch, now what? Now you're giving $27 million to a guy that's useless. It's not like he can go, well, I guess I need to pick it up. I guess I got to score 22 points a game now.
My question for Houston, though, is I feel like like Capela answers questions by almost like by the lack of other people out there that can do certain things. So, like, Houston, they can't really find anybody like Capela on the cheap.
Right.
And so they almost have, because that vertical spacing is what unlocks a pick your poison situation of corner threes, easy drives to the rim. If Capela's not on the floor, it's different out there. But it's just because of vertical spacing and the pressure that he puts on the lob that really makes, it's like Harden and Chris Paul can sort of just go through the motions in their sleep. They know how it's going to be covered, and they know they got that lob there, and they just run it all the time. But who else is going to be able to do that, that's on this free agent list? I'm going through the bigs. Cousins can't. Gordon, we've talked about him as a guy that, you basically pay the same amount for with some other question marks. Thad Young ain't going to do it. Cantor ain't going to do it. Lopez ain't going to do it. Nurkic ain't going to do it. And now we're starting to get Nerlens Noel. I mean, we don't know if he's got anything in the tank.
I'd rather Wait, who did you just say?
I got Nerlens, Nurkic, Lopez, Cantor. I mean, there's a lot of ground bound.
I mean, I'd
men
much
out
rather
there.
I'd much rather have Nurkic than Clint Capela.
Ooh.
I mean, it's just. I mean, just to me, like, I just can't. I just don't value that. I just don't value it. I mean, I just as far as for $27 million, I do not value a guy that can't on his own go get me points.
We have extreme disagreement on these two players.
I just don't. I'm
I
sorry.
love it. I love it because we always agree. When we get a disagreement going, it's good stuff here. So elsewhere, I just want to make sure we hit some of these bigger names that are going to start flying around here. Marcus Smart. He is probably him and Zach LaVine and then Cousins are the last three big names that we haven't gotten into. And there's a ton of names. You got to just go read through it. Like, we're not even going to talk about Isaiah Thomas. His free agency is fascinating. You know, his value drop is as big as I've seen in the league. So there's a lot of guys out there that really have some good, unique backstory there. But as far as these bigger names go, Marcus Smart, I have him as number 7 on this list. I don't think he's going to get paid. I think Boston probably wants to keep him. So,
to me, Marcus Smart is I love the things that he does, but it's really only valuable on a good team. So I don't know that his
well, I haven't projected it 4 years, 52 million, 13 million per year. So not breaking the bank. That middle tier of player.
Yeah, could be worth it if you're a good team. I don't know if you are there, on the cusp.
I wonder if the Lakers could make a play for somebody like. So, say you organize LeBron and Paul George or whatever that configuration, or maybe even just LeBron. I feel like Marcus Smart playing with a point forward, or even like a point shooting guard, like built in the mold of like Kobe or somebody, that you take the ball out of Marcus Smart's hands and really just get that toughness on defense, and you maximize it that way.
Yeah, but then that means that they're going all in on moving what's his name, Ball, because you don't want that jackass on the and his dad on the roster with because no coach in their right mind is gonna see Lonzo Ball retreating on defense the way he does in his defensive slides and have Marcus Smart sitting on the bench. I mean, so
well, that's why the Lakers are the most intriguing team, because they can start sending assets out and get good value in return.
Sure.
I mean, Ball's probably bringing a top 10 pick in return if it was a pick, and then kind of what that would equal as a veteran is hard to say. Ingram probably more than that.
Yeah, definitely more than that.
I mean, I don't know what you can get for Randle in some sort of a deal, but probably I would have to look at that stuff.
Yeah, I don't like Randle. I would bet is on his way, and I would think that they're going to hold pat with what they had. I think that if they were able to get LeBron and Paul George, I think you'd be seeing you'd move Ball and try to get a more solid 3-and-D guy. I think ideally you'd want a better shooter. Like I'd much rather have, if I have LeBron, I'd much rather have Joe Harris than Marcus Smart.
Well, I'm glad you're giving my boy some pub. He's ranked number 5 in the Hoop Ball free agency list. That means he's the 5th best, in my opinion, asset you can pursue in free agency, because he's going to be dirt cheap. And he kind of can do it all.
Yeah.
I don't think he's as good as Joe Ingles, but Joe Ingles cost $13 million.
Yeah, he's not as good, but we're talking about the value there. If I have a LeBron James, I want a little bit more pure stroke than Marcus Smart, and then I think that they'll just be waiting on the Kawhi situation, and that's when everybody goes. That's when the Kuzma, Ingram, and a pick package heads out for Kawhi. Well, so I would think that's going to be in their plan.
I don't think the Spurs have as much leverage as everybody else thinks, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know what they. I don't know what leverage they have. I mean, to me, I'd be on the phone with Boston, and I'd try to get a move there if Boston wants to take the chance. I mean, it might be worth a rental for Boston. You know, Kawhi might be worth a rental for Boston. You know, if they could get to the finals and put up a fight.
Jeff Green got a 22 pick 1 year. I think it was Doc Rivers that made that choice.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I can see Kawhi getting a top 15 pick for a 1 year rental. I don't know how you can go justify it much beyond that. I mean, you might, if you're the Celtics, say, you know what, screw it. We're just going to do it and not care. I can see that.
Yeah, I just don't.
And I don't know what their picks are, off the top of my head. I know they got a lot of them.
They got a lot of them, but to me, it's like if you can package a couple of those and they grab them for a year, if they can get to the finals, I mean, like, that's a hard walk away. That's a hard walk away for him. Plus they'd have his bird rights. So
quickly, Ghost of Stat Boy weighed in, and Joe Harris did play with LeBron in Cleveland.
That's right.
And he excelled. That was the other thing. And it's great because Harris has excelled anytime he's been given the opportunity. He's kind of a classic hoop ball draft rankings guy. So readers, go check out the Joe Harris thing. He's 6'6", and I don't think that he's probably better as a shooting guard. That's the style of his play. But he gets in there and he kind of bangs. Like he does not have any fear whatsoever offensively. He takes it to the paint. I think it's funny in Sacramento they've been telegraphing their interest in Mario Hezonja for a year. They're going to probably pay him a good amount of money. And he had a nice little stretch in February and March that should definitely be given consideration. I mean,
he did, but he ain't there yet. And I don't know that he's a guy that can't. Him going to Sacramento means that they've just wasted a ton of money because he will not excel there.
Well, and
they do not have the structure to have someone like him continue his career ascendance.
He's been in a dysfunctional situation in Orlando the entire time. That's a kind of a pro in his favor. Like they can say, yeah, well, let's move you out of that sort of a thing. But Joe Harris just knows how to play the game. Like he just when you watch him play, you never come away thinking, oh, that Joe Harris, man, he really screwed that up. It's usually like, why isn't he getting more minutes or good play? And I don't want to make him out to be like he's not as good as Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles was sort of a freak because of the arm length, because of the defense, the shooting, and the passing, and the just all-around nastiness to his game. Like, for people like the Kings to not throw an extra $12 million, pardon me, his way, really, to me, speaks of, like, come on. Like, you didn't know that? Joe Harris is in that category for me. He's number 5. Anyway, real quick, back to the bigger names here in the rankings. I want to get your take on Zach LaVine, and then he's
not going anywhere.
Yeah,
he's not going anywhere. I mean, at least, and then the trade doesn't make any sense. I mean, he's to me.
But they're softening in Chicago. That could be posturing. Like he didn't do anything really great last year. When he returned from injury, he was not that good, which was to be expected.
He wasn't that good, but I didn't think he was getting a ton of minutes. I didn't think they were he wasn't playing all the time. I mean, they were clearly trying to tank. But to me, I don't know. Then they have to, I guess, explain the Butler trade, because to me, he's the thing that's going to swing that trade in their favor.
Let me play devil's advocate. Doesn't Chris Dunn being at least promising, doesn't that sort of change things a little bit?
As far as what? Being able to get rid of Zach LaVine?
I don't think they want to get rid of Zach LaVine. I think that you're right about him signing there. I'm curious about what his number ends up being. This is a guy that, if the injury doesn't happen, I would think would be kind of an insta-max. But because of the injury, we haven't seen good basketball out of him. We haven't been able to see him improve the way that he would probably improve had he not been injured. We've seen him chuck. We've seen him play Russell Westbrook-like defense. I kind of think he's Russell Westbrook light. I kind of, if I had to guess, I'm thinking the offer comes in something like 17 million, 18 million.
I think he's. I mean, they might do that, but I think someone's going to offer more. I think if they want him and if they want to put their money on Chris Dunn and Markkanen, that's their choice. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But he's the only guy that, to me, out of those guys, that reaching his full potential could be a multiple All-Star. So that they see him every day. They should know. But then again, we're talking about, I understand, like, yeah, his defense hadn't been great, but we're talking about Hoiberg. I mean, when was the last time he asked anybody to play defense?
It's been a while since we've gotten a good Hoiberg defense comment out of you. Real quick, let's get another big name out there. DeMarcus Cousins. This one's huge. I don't think you can offer him 4 years.
No.
I don't think actually, let me rephrase that. I think you can if you really think that DeMarcus Cousins is the player you want to hitch your wagon to for the next 4 years. I think there is a financial equation out there that could work, like 4 years, $20 million in that range, maybe north of that range. I think can beat out an incumbent offer from the Pelicans, who has come. I think the Zach Lowe said 2 to 3 years and $20 million in that range.
From who? The Pelicans?
From the Pelicans might be where he's at. I wonder if you can get him for cheaper. I mean, it kind of sounds sacrilegious because if he is playing.
I think you could on a 2-year deal. I think if he has an option for the second year, I think you could get him for 18. I mean, I think he's a guy that's really.
He's in a prove-it situation, for one.
He's in a prove-it situation, and I think that with all of his history, this is where all of his antics, this is where they
really hurt him. Yeah.
This is where they really, really hurt him. Like, if he had been a stand-up guy who plays hard all the time and that didn't get a technical because, someone looked at him funny, if he was that guy, then sure, he might even get, 22 to 24 coming off this injury, because he's not really like an athletic guy. He plays below the rim anyway. So, you know what I mean? So it's not like he can make the argument that the injury isn't going to really affect anything he does. And especially from what I understand, he's lost a ton of weight and he's looking really good right now.
He does that every year.
Yeah, that's true. But
it's funny. There's some comments on the article from New Orleans, like, kind of like, does this guy even watch DeMarcus Cousins? And I'm like, yeah, man, I've had the thrill of watching DeMarcus Cousins his entire career. But that's where these kind of things really hurt him. So I think if no one's willing to go above 20, I think that for 4 or 22 for 4, if I'm DeMarcus Cousins, I'll take the 18 for 2, with the option for the second year. Try to have a great season, and then opt out and jump back in and maybe be able to get closer to that 26 to 28 million a year. Doesn't it make sense to sort of align himself with the career arc of Anthony Davis, which I don't know what the expiration date is on that.
I don't know if the Pelicans want him. I just thought they looked way better without him.
But this is, and we don't have enough time to talk about DeMarcus Cousins in depth, but this, and I wrote about it in the rankings, so go check it out. It's like, okay, so you have this big injury. Your weight is always an issue. And so if you've decided, if you're DeMarcus Cousins, and I think he has, with the support of some really bad decisions around him, has become a perimeter player, It's not about posting. It's about dribble drive. It's about, taking jumpers. And these dribble drives that he takes are some of the wildest and least beneficial for his teammates, and they almost always end up in him falling on the ground with the team having a 5-on-4 the other way.
Right.
He cleaned it up. This is the sad thing, is he cleaned it up toward the end of his healthy time in New Orleans when him and Anthony Davis had a pretty devastating screen and roll and a devastating high-low game. And I can get behind that stuff on the perimeter, but if you're already struggling to get to the rim and your preferred choice of play, how is a lack of athleticism going to help? You're going to have an even harder time getting a corner. So right. I wonder, is this like the smart way to do it? This would mark a change in his game. He would go back to the block and just be devastating.
Sure.
But I don't know that he's going to do that. And right. So, with the Pelicans and their salary, Anthony Davis situation, I should say, like, how does this all, does he just, I think you're right. He takes a short deal, but I also think he kind of becomes the wild card of this free agency, because if there's a short deal sort of beneficial to the Pelicans because they don't have to make a big bet on Cousins and basically because the market's not there. Also, Cousins is like, I would like a short-term deal because I would like to get the big deal after I've reestablished my value. Then another team can come in and say, okay, so you guys are all looking for short deals and low money. We can actually come get the big man. So if you're Mark Cuban and the Mavs, who have been kind of after him for a bit, you might get paid. If Clint Capela goes back to Houston and then they look at DeMarcus Cousins as the number 2 big on their board in Dallas, and they've had a hard time getting marquee free agents, they win with a big 4-year, $22 million deal or something of that nature. That's, and that would be wild. DeMarcus Cousins is the key to a lot of teams countering the small ball.
Yeah, if he so chooses.
What if you pair him with LeBron?
I think that would be amazing for them. I think it would be great for his career. I think having someone that is going to get in his ass is going to help him. I think it would be great. I think that if I was him, and I don't know who his agent is, but that's where I would be going if I was DeMarcus Cousins. And that would, you'd be able to, playing with LeBron, you could reset your value very easily without just drop offs by LeBron. You can probably LeBron, for a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, LeBron will hand him 10 to 12 points a game, without him doing anything. So that to me would definitely be worth taking less.
He's like the one guy in the league that could probably effectively tell him to shut up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be constant, and it's going to be invariable. Like he'll either just decide to sit and pout, he'll just continue to get reamed every single game in the middle of the floor. We're not talking about he's not going to wait and do it in a casual way, on the sidelines when it's a TV timeout or something. It's going to be a constant thing, and the only way to get out of it will be to play hard and play smart. So I think it's
a fascinating question, because I think LeBron's like, hell no, I ain't dealing with none of that. But it might be one of those things where, say you get Paul George and you're the Lakers, you got LeBron and Paul George, or LeBron and Kawhi, or whatever the combo could end up being, and then you're like, right, what is that one piece that we could bring in that would really counter what's going on the other end? You run LeBron at 4, Paul George at 3, and you go big against the Golden State Warriors. And I think that would just, with the way clutching and grabbing and the way defense can be played in the playoffs, the size advantage could overwhelm the Golden State Warriors, and that would be fascinating television. But it all comes back to LeBron. He's like, I'm too old for this crap. I'm not dealing with that guy. And that's
it might be worth it.
Looking quickly at the cap situation, Anthony Davis has a player option, not this season, not next season, but the season after that. So if the Pelicans offered a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year option, to DeMarcus Cousins, that would line up. I don't know how they feel about telegraphing a situation where it's like, hey, you guys can all leave in that year, 2021. 2020 to 2021, that's the year you guys are leaving. I don't know if they want to do that, but I don't know that they have a say in the matter. Anthony Davis pretty much controls that, and that's an interesting little subplot. I think that's it, Kaz. We got a lot of information in here. I don't know if there's anybody else you want to say a word about, but the floor is yours.
Nah. We'll see what happens. I'm waiting for Kawhi.
Nah. All right.
It's up to Kawhi.
I'm going to throw one little nugget out here. I want it to be obscure. So you guys go read the article over at hoop-ball.com. David Nwaba, number 10 on my list. David Nwaba out of Chicago. I think he's going to be pretty damn good. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Follow us at hoop-ball.com, at Kaz and Brew Show on Twitter, and on Facebook, where Kaz is tweeting everything Onion. I guess you don't tweet on Facebook, but you get the point. It's at facebook.com/Kaz and Brew Show. Another one's in the books. Peace.
Peace.
You are listening to the Kaz and Brew Show.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.